to speak softly into this microphone. Question for you guys, how many of you guys lead teams? Lead teams. And how many of you guys lead teams in terms of the thought leadership, right? Writing specs, writing requirements, getting teams aligned, negotiating and managing when people disagree, all that kind of stuff. Every hand should be up. Come on, people, we're product people, right? We all do this. This is the core of what we do. And so one of the things that this talk is about is really how to manage across all of that tumultuousness that we feel as product managers. This person thinks that, the designer thinks this, the engineer thinks this, your boss thinks that, and then the executive comes in and swoops in and changes everything. Yeah, does it sound familiar? So what are some of the principles that we use as product leaders to manage through all of this tumultuousness? Yeah, there we go. Is that the PDF? Okay, great. I can just, can we, okay. Sorry, guys, 1 second.
Did you see all the screen captures on the next?
Yes.
Great. Okay, fantastic.
And tech support.
All right, and tech support. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. So when we think of, so we're all builders. When we think of teams building together, we often have this picture. And that picture is a bunch of very happy people. Let me go this for back. Okay. Oh, what is going on? Sorry, technical difficulties. Okay, so when we often think about a team working together, we think of this picture, which is, look at all these happy people. They're all in the same room, all the pieces fit together. You know, one person's like, I'm gonna put this over here. The other one's like, yeah, and I'm gonna put this over here. This has not been my experience of building technology products. Right, my experience has been more like being in the middle of a really crazy set of incoming requests and questions and demands, and feeling like I'm in the center of this just crazy dynamic with no idea where to turn. Yes? Sounds familiar to anyone? Okay. So a couple of notes about where I'm coming from. So I worked at IEO right down the street over here for many years, 7.5 years. And every single time we had this, we had to create these teams to solve problems from financial services to how to launch new pharmaceutical products to how to do agriculture texting platforms for market prices in Ethiopia. So all these different teams working on lots of different projects all over the world. And then I worked at Salesforce, where we redesigned the core CRM product with Lightning Experience, and Meredith and I worked on that together as well. And so we had to bring together all of these functions and all of these people from all over the organization to work toward this common, big, hairy, audacious goal, right? And so, could have been chaos, and many times it was. And then we built the IoT cloud at Salesforce, and I was the head of the product experience, so we're building from the ground up, trying to get to these crazy deadlines, mostly around Dreamforce or other demos that Mark Benioff wanted to present. And again, trying to build the team, trying to build the product, all at the same time. And again, doing that with AWS, going into AWS into a completely different culture. And again, building a software product, building a brand new team of designers, product managers, front-end developers, and trying to do all this simultaneously, you know, at the same time while traveling up to Seattle, okay? So, you know, what managing product teams has always felt like to me is something like going out onto this grand voyage, this grand expedition. And it's like, the leader of your country tells you, okay, we need to get to the North Pole before anybody else. So pick your boat, staff your boat with the best people, and get there. And you're like, okay, everybody, onto the boat. You get the best engineers, and you get the best weather people, and the best sailors in the world, and off you go. And just a couple of days into the journey, somebody runs up from the engine room. And they say, Captain, I have bad news for you. We just found out that the engine is terribly unstable. We have to stop the boat, rebuild the engine, and then we'll take a little while to test it. And then we can start on our journey again. But whatever you do, do not speed up the boat until we rebuild the engine, okay? And then somebody comes in from the weather station, and they say, Captain, we have just spotted a huge storm to our east. We have to tack the boat to the west and run away from the storm as fast as possible, right? Because, you know, the storm is really big, the waves are going to be enormous, it's going to be really bad. This is the only thing we can do. And then somebody comes in from the lookout station, and they say, Captain, I've just spotted pirates. They're coming from the west. We have to tack the ship to the east and run away from the pirates as quickly as possible because the pirates are really, really fast. They've got really, really fast boats. Sound familiar to anyone, this story? Yeah? All right. So the problem, and then, just as that person leaves, the admiral calls. And he says, Captain, I have news for you. Your, what she says, whatever. Usually, come on, let's get real. It's a he. The CEO calls, and he says, so then the admiral calls, and he says, Captain, I have some news for you. Your supplies for the trip back home are coming 2 weeks early. Going to be at the North Pole 2 weeks early, so you better speed up the boat and go straight to the North Pole. Do not slow down for anything. Get to your goal as quickly as possible. And you've got to get there early. So you've got a new deadline. So, the problem with this story, if you are the captain of the ship, is not that any of the people are wrong. The problem is that they are all right. From their perspective, right, they are all telling you the best things based on what they know. And they are all earnest. And they all believe the things that they're saying because it's based on the data that they see, right? If you are in the weather station, you only look at the weather. If you're in the lookout, you only, look for pirates, right? Based on what the partial knowledge is, but your job as a product leader is to integrate all of these points of view and actually set the direction and make decisions in this incredible landscape of uncertainty, ambiguity, and partial knowledge all around, right? The founder of Visa, Deepak, he actually tweeted this out a few months ago. Making proper, effective decisions when you have all the facts is not management, it is bookkeeping. Making such decisions when you have some of the facts and clear instructions from superiors is management. And leading is making such decisions when you have nothing but vision. So when we say that we are product leaders, it means that we are navigating our way through uncertainty and through all these tumultuous points of view and still going forward to our vision. So, with that, here are 3 principles that have helped me in these times of incredible uncertainty and ambiguity that I hope will be relevant to you as well. So the first is customer obsession. We hear this all the time. We hear this all the time, and yet I think that it still bears some time to reflect on what it really means in our organizations. I'm going to have you do something first, very quickly, and that is say hello to someone that you're going to work with, because there's going to be some interactive exercises. So turn to someone, say hello, very quickly. Great. Team of 3 is good. That's fine. Okay. So that's it. Okay, let's come on back. So, making the customer our North Star. And there is one company that I worked at that is really, really good at this. And what Jeff Bezos says is that you have to understand customer obsession. Customer obsession is being customer obsessed instead of being technology obsessed, instead of being product obsessed, instead of being business model obsessed. He says there are many ways to center a company, but he thinks customer obsession is the best one. And you cannot be customer obsessed and competitor obsessed. You cannot be customer obsessed and product obsessed. You cannot be customer obsessed and technology obsessed. You have to pick which one is your North Star. Okay? So it's not this and this, it's customer or one of the other things, right? So what is truly your obsession in your company? The other thing that Jeff Bezos, at least when I was at AWS, so I was in AWS from 2016 to earlier this year, 2018, and through all of 2017, Jeff Bezos did a very interesting thing around the company, especially with product leaders. If you read his 2017 shareholder letter, he has an incredible paragraph about resisting proxies. He urges his product leaders to resist proxies, which means market research and customer surveys can become proxies for customers, something that's especially dangerous when you're inventing and designing products. I'm not against beta testing or surveys, but you, the product or service owner, must understand the customer, have a vision, and love the offering. Then beta testing and research and process can help you find your blind spots. A remarkable customer experience starts with heart, intuition, curiosity, play, guts, and taste. You won't find any of that in a survey. So again, this comes directly from the 2017 shareholder letter. And then the other thing that Jeff said over and over again in 2017 is that when the anecdotes and the data conflict, trust the anecdotes. There's probably something wrong with the way that you are measuring. And so the thing about customer obsession is to really understand and go into the field with your customers, to really get in there and with your customers understand by walking in their shoes, by working and interacting with them on a personal basis so that you can develop that intuition as a product owner. So in terms of resisting proxies, there are a couple of proxies that I'm going to have you think about with your partner about how you can start to resist these in your organization. So the first one is surveys and tests. Again, there's nothing wrong with surveys or tests, but these are not your customers. Your dashboards are not your customers. They are a way that you can maybe see if some of the insights about your customers are generalizable, but those numbers are not your customers. So beware of the type of slippery thinking that you can actually understand your customers through A/B testing, right? Right, there has to be something that comes before that. Anybody work in enterprise software? Has anyone had the experience when a salesperson has said, hey, product manager, you don't need to talk to customers. I talk to customers all the time. Just talk to me and I'll tell you what they want. Does this sound familiar to anybody? Very. Salespeople are not customers. They are not customers. Doesn't mean you should ignore salespeople, right? However, salespeople will tell you, so sales objections are not the same things as insights about customers or the needs of customers. They are completely orthogonal to each other, okay? What is not getting the deal signed today is not the same thing that customers are going to need in the future. And our job as product leaders is to understand not what's going to get this deal signed tomorrow, because guess what? Nothing's going to be built in a day, right? It's what are the things that where's the world going 6 months, 12 months, 18 months from now? And how does our product get there in a more compelling way than anybody else? Completely different, right? Completely different. And then finally, fake customers. Does anyone use personas with names in their organizations? Does anybody have a Jenny or a Julie? All right. There's a whole bunch of research in anthropology around these composite characters and why composite characters are so dangerous for good logical thinking, rational thinking about social phenomena. And the problem with fake customers or composite characters that actually have names. So we are designing for Julie, and Julie is a 55-year-old admin who has 2 kids and a dog and lives in the suburbs and drives a Mini. So one, if you have an idea that's based on Julie, how do you interrogate Julie and ask her if that idea actually works for her? You can't. And so what happens in your meetings is that people use their own assumptions, biases, and misdirection around what Julie might want or Jenny might want, right? And attribute it to her, because guess what? She can't answer back. You can't actually call her up, right? She's a fake person. The other thing is, that demographic profile of the Julie or the Jenny really hurts understanding the actual spectrum of user types that you have. So for example, at IDEO we did a project around financial services and the types of people who were basically gaming the financial system. So there was a group of people, we called them, instead of the Julie or the Jenny, we called them gamers. Gamers included this guy who we called Duffel Bag Mike, because he had a duffel bag of cash in his Las Vegas home because he had taken he had done a whole bunch of crazy money laundering things and got a duffel bag of cash at the end. So this guy was like a 28-year-old guy in Las Vegas. And then also another gamer was Polina, who was a Russian grandmother in Columbus, Ohio. Okay? Who had also scanned the system, taken out a totally fake mortgage in her daughter's name, right after she had gone bankrupt, and did a whole bunch of other things. So again, you can actually, by putting these two people, actual real people, and trying to find a composite character, one, it's impossible to do that, and two, it actually prevents you as a product manager from really seeing what are the core things, behaviors, and mindsets that these people have in common, because you focus on the demographics, which are fake anyway. So really, it's just bad social science, and I would really, really urge you to move away from these named people, these fake people, to really trying to figure out what is the core, the essence of what that user type has in common. Their mindsets, their behaviors, those types of things. Okay? So we're going to do our first exercise, and with this you're going to talk with your partner about how might you and your team invest in customer intuition, obsessing over customers, instead of doing other things like obsessing over competitors or obsessing over technology, and how can you resist proxies? So you're going to talk to your partner about 3 things: what we currently do, what we might start doing, right? What are some of the things that we might start doing instead, and what we might stop doing, okay? So you're each gonna work pretty quickly. I'm gonna give you about 2 minutes each. So after 2 minutes, I'm gonna tell you to switch, and you're gonna switch partners, okay? Go. resist proxies in our organization? Okay, how many people feel that currently in your organization uses proxies to some extent? To some extent, okay. And so we'll think about what can we do to resist proxies. Okay, principles and KPIs. So make your measures really reflect your vision and your values. So we have some folks from Salesforce here. The V2 Mom is a system that really makes, right, your metrics reflect your vision and your values, right? It's an alignment mechanism. You can learn a lot more about it online. But the whole purpose is to not start with the metrics, not pull the metrics out of nowhere, but to really think about what are we measuring and how does it align with our vision and values. And Intuit, is anybody here from Intuit? Intuit? Yes. As of a month ago. Okay, so the Truenorth Dashboard, what is that? Oh, okay. So the Truenorth Dashboard, Intuit. So Intuit went through a realignment exercise of rethinking its metrics across the organization. And one of the things that Scott Cook, the founder of Intuit, realized was that what they were saying is that they were a very customer-centric organization, but the things that they were measuring were actually more financial outcomes, right? So how do they realign their dashboard to put customers first? And so you can read this dashboard from left to right in priority order. If we take care of the employees and we make the customers happy, then the shareholders will be just fine, right? So the way that the business reviews are conducted and the product reviews is that they read the dashboards from left to right and focus, right, on the metrics that are red or yellow, especially on the employee and the customer side, right? And then the idea is if these are green, then these will be green, right? That there's a causal effect. These are lagging indicators, these are leading indicators, and these are the things that product people should really focus on, okay? So really that realignment of the dashboard to reflect the values and the vision of making Intuit customer-centric directly reflected, right, in what the organization measured. And then finally, experimentation and iteration. So sharing your work in progress to customers early and often and listening to their feedback and what they have to say, okay? So we all know about experimentation and iteration. This is a slide from the Lightning Experience redesign where we sketched together very frequently, got feedback from customers over and over again, and just in sketching, and sketching is such a democratic process and set of tools because you can get together in a room with product managers, designers, and engineers, give everybody some paper and Sharpies, right, and start sketching together, right? Nobody needs to have any special, if anybody's gone to kindergarten, they can sketch, right? So they can really be collaborative and iterate and brainstorm together, right, and experiment through with customers. One of the things I hear a lot of people say is, well, we're in a well, Tatyana, this is great if you work in technology, but we're in a highly regulated industry, or we're in the government. We can't experiment and iterate the same way that you consumer tech people can. Well, one thing, so this is a project that we did at IDEO with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. We worked with Elizabeth Warren to try to figure out what are some consumer engagement tools, how do we create tools to help American citizens make better financial decisions. This was extremely heated. Congress did not like this agency. And so anything that we would have created and put in front of consumers to try to get feedback would have been very politically contested, right, and very politically filled with landmines. So what we did was we created some initially, paper prototypes, and then, some kind of Envision app-like prototypes. And if you notice what these prototypes look like, they had no words, right? And they just had interactions, right? And we had people click around and then say, okay, they said, well, what does this say? And they're like, well, if you're taking out a student loan, what would you expect it to say? What would be helpful for you, right? So we actually iterated with very open-ended conversations, experimented and got feedback with very open-ended conversations, because it was just so rife with potential PR and regulatory and congressional oversight implications if we actually started to put anything in front of people. And then when we actually did iterate with words and language, what we actually did was we said, and here's what people said they wanted, so we put this in the prototype. Right? And we had the documentation of people saying that they wanted this as opposed to us coming up with it, right? So that was a way to experiment and iterate through, right? Once we actually started to create the real, apps to say this is what people said they wanted whenever that we were asked. Okay, so your second exercise. What vision and values do your current metrics communicate? And what story do your metrics tell about what matters? So, with your partner, talk about your current top metrics, the story that these metrics tell, right? So how many of you guys use engagement as your current top metric? Anybody? Engagement. So think about engagement. So this engagement, do your customers actually care about how engaged they are with your product? Is that something that's valuable to them, or is that something that's valuable to you? What story does that tell? Okay? And then what could we start measuring to shift the story? What are the things that your customer actually values that we can start measuring to shift that story that we're telling internally and that we're communicating to the world? Okay? So we're going to do the same thing, 2 minutes and 2 minutes. Okay? Great. Go. Okay. So, did anyone have any realizations about the metrics that they're currently using in their company? Yes? Can you share a little bit?
Sure. Hi everyone, my name is Nicole Winston. I'm from Verizon. I would definitely say that my metric is actually financial. It's all about revenue, and then the revenue goes back and gives me more funding for the next round when I engage my customers. But just to give you a little background, so I'm our product manager for our software management services for IoT. And that means anytime a device needs to be updated in the area, we'll go to our product to actually go ahead and execute those firmware campaigns. Now, from a customer perspective, I just don't want to take my devices down. So I need to make sure that I look at latency and the time I take them down and the success rate, which are not our executive metrics. Our executive metrics always come back to revenue. Even though those are technically things that I'm concerned about, they're not our leadership.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you think you could maybe, do you think you guys can start maybe introducing those to your executive team?
Yes, I think it has to be strategic in the way we communicate them.
Anyone else? Did anyone else have any realizations about the metrics that they currently use or ways to improve them?
So for all my my Salesforce friends here. I'm Meredith Brown from Salesforce. And one of the things we measure a lot of monthly active users, monthly active orgs, just to see how many customers are using it. But one of the things that we like to talk about on our product is we help them do certain things, like grow their business, find leads. Like, wouldn't it be amazing if we actually measured that our product helps them do those things? And we do it through customer stories, but if we could do it in a more operational way, that would be pretty amazing.
Hi, I'm Rita Farouk. Oh, this is loud. I probably don't need it. I'm Rita Farouk from Connecticut, but I was mentioning years ago, I actually worked at a startup for a CEO who came out of sales, but his guiding principle was customer satisfaction. And one of the top measurements for himself and for the entire company was customer satisfaction. And then every quarter, he had every employee present their goals and objectives in front of everybody else. And everybody had to come up with a way they could improve customer satisfaction. And it was literally the most beautiful thing I have ever seen, like in the environment of club. Because these engineers or like documentation people, or people would come up with all these ways to improve or address customer satisfaction. An engineer was like, I could refactor this API to make it more efficient, or I can restructure documentation and all these things. And you could see, and then actually measuring customer satisfaction, having a set of things that you measure and you go on a survey and you follow up and you do things. And it was really, really great to see because as a product person, there's a set of things that I feel passionate about and I'm driving, but I don't have the full visibility into that death by 1,000 cuts, the whole interaction with our company as a whole, not just the product, right? And the customer is experiencing with Verizon. They don't just experience with your IoT product, they experience with customer care center and a store and everybody else, and it was important to have that integral piece of information. So I'm working my hardest to always, wherever I am, come as close as I can to that metric or injecting that back, right? And even now I'm going through planning process and I go from engineers bottom up to make sure, what is the technical debt you want to pay? What are the things that keep you up at night, right? To just find out what are the blind spots, what are the things that will hurt the customers going forward that are outside the news cycle of the things I want to kind of introduce to the market.
One more?
Sure.
Testing. Okay, far away. Hi everyone, I'm Ariana. I'm a product manager on Google Search. And actually I'm tying together two things here and then I want to tie it back to something you mentioned earlier and then end with a question, which is, so the team that I'm on right now, we are in a period of transition moving from pretty like high-level genericized like metrics like DAU and MAU, which on a product as mature as search can be pretty hard to move and actually measure, to thinking about customer satisfaction and then things like task completion. And that's moving from like just a metric and a dashboard to actually like the way we've thought about doing that is through surveys. And I'm wondering though, back to your comment earlier about like surveys and tests, like not your actual customers. Is the distinction there that what you're suggesting with the surveys and tests, it's not a good way to cultivate new ideas and new directions, as opposed to surveys are totally okay from a measuring success and outcomes perspective? That's my question.
Yeah.
So the insight there was really that, quantitative data and qualitative data need to be married together, right? And that's why I bring up that quote, when the anecdotes and the data conflict, trust the anecdotes, right? Because you need to have that why, that intuition, so we can be measuring something, but it might not mean what we think it means. So we need to really have the two work together. And yes, for new product development, for intuiting where the world will go, where our customers will be 12 months from now or 18 months from now, no survey will get you that, right? Because customers won't be able to answer that. So for that, you really need to develop that deep intuition. But for things that have been in market for a while, yes, you absolutely need to generalize your understanding about what's working. So yeah. All right. So finally, just the three things that I hope you will bring back to your teams is that to use the customer as the North Star, to try to resist proxies for customers, to tell your vision and your values story through your metrics, right? So your metrics should reflect your vision and values. They should not be separate things. And to prototype with customers early and often. And I hope this will help you, lead you through some very strange and tumultuous times in product development. Thank you so much.
Let's give a big hand for Tatyana. By the way, Tatyana is also our executive advisor, so thank you for helping to grow AWIP